recorded.
All right, I'll be calling the Board of Water Wastewater Commissioners meeting agenda Friday, September 11th, 2020 at 1 o'clock to order. On the conference call, we have Dan Elliott, the Water Superintendent, Alan Thompson, Water Commissioner, Judith was here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. And Dan, I don't see anyone else. There's no one else on the call, on the meeting?
It does appear that we have a caller on the line.
Okay, all right.
They're right now identified.
So the first
in our office as well.
Do you know who the caller is?
I do not.
Okay. All right, so we'll start off with the consent agenda. I need a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the minutes of July 31st and August 12th, 2020.
All right, we don't have the August 12th. Hold on, we don't have the August 12th minutes. We just have the Friday, July 30. Well,
it's 31st.
The minutes,
on the meetings.
On the agenda it says 30, but the minutes are 31.
Right, that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
It's actually
just
Friday the 31st is the correct date.
all right.
Yeah.
So July 31st. Okay. So there's a motion to approve July 31st, 2020 minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
I'll take a vote by roll call. Alan?
Aye.
Judith?
Aye.
And it's an aye for myself. All right, thank you. We'll have the August 12th minutes at our next meeting. Next order of business is abatements. We have no abatements. And next is the old unfinished business. Wastewater discussion. Okay, you wanna go through that?
Yeah, so I think we mentioned at the last meeting about leaving this on here as a general discussion item to handle any miscellaneous wastewater items that come up, and then as there's a lot of work that's going to need to be done over the next 6 to 8 months as we gear up to turn the collection system on. So a few of those things that I have on my mind, obviously we just did water rates. Sewer rates is another consideration that we need to iron out prior to accepting wastewater customers. Irrigation meters, the startup of the collection system, how we intend on bringing in contract operators for the startup and training, and what that ramp-up period is going to look like. So right now, I believe it was 2 meetings ago that we had discussed this initially, and I had reached out to the town administrator and set up a meeting at the board's request. I believe, Gary, if I'm not mistaken, that was set up with you and I to meet with Joe in his office. That's on the 15th to talk about transition items as we start to pick up. So if there's other things that the board wants to, I guess, inquire about at this point, I would be open to questions as to anything you may be curious about in process or where we're at. So.
All right, so Dan, just going through this, Chatham request with supplement. It says regular wages $28,788.
Yeah. So I was going to cover that down under new business. If you we can get it now too. We had wastewater on here twice. One for the general topic, but then one for the formal FY21 wastewater budget.
You know what, Dan, we can wait on we can go to the budget down in business. That's fine. That's fine. So do we have any discussion or any questions about wastewater as of right now?
All I wanted to say is, I think that we should all be involved in this interaction as far as wastewater going. So I was kind of hoping that we could put something together and all of us hear firsthand and address concerns at that point. So it's going to be an ongoing thing. And so it just, things come to my mind about it all. And when you're in the discussion, it sometimes answers those questions, but it also gives you the opportunity to ask those questions. So we could figure out some way as a group to have these discussions. I think it would be a lot better for all of us.
But just so you know, the meeting that I had with Dan, with the town administrator, was basically involving the charter and the language for town employees, and where that falls. We didn't have a meeting for the budget or anything until right now. Dan just put this together, I don't know, the last couple of weeks, and this is the first I'm seeing it as you are. So there was nothing put together. Yeah, we're all seeing this for the first time right now, just so we're all on the same page. So I don't want you to know.
Yeah, I think, Alan, if I'm not mistaken, were you referring more to the meeting for next week, the 15th? Because that's really the first discussion that we've scheduled.
Upcoming, moving forward. Yeah, I guess. All
right.
So the one thing that I would say, if we're going to do that, I mean, so the 15th, I don't know if we have enough time. What's still on the 15th is Tuesday. Because in order for us to participate in a discussion together, we have to post the meeting, because there's only 3 board members, or else we get into the,
meeting. Yeah.
So if there's available, I can reschedule the 15th, but, I reach out if we want to try to do it as a Zoom meeting, or we could set up so that everyone could participate.
Well, everybody's going to know what's going to happen. So, some way, shape, or form. So whether it's a public meeting that folks can look at, so be it. At least they know what's coming. I think we all need to know, and we all need to hear it firsthand and raise the issues. And I'm sure there'll be issues raised by the public also. So I think it makes a lot of sense to do it that way. Because
I can invite to our next meeting. I can invite Joe to our next meeting. That way we're in performance.
Yeah, what's the 15th meeting about?
The 15th was regarding wastewater. So that,
what topics are you covering?
That was a follow-up. Hold on, bear with me. I was trying to recall the exact specifics of the conversation to be had. Let me just pull up the invite here. Just surrounding the transition, the meeting title that we have is Water Commission Becoming Wastewater. So just, obviously this is now our second meeting. I think it kind of snuck up on everyone. The transition from Water Commission to Water Wastewater Commission. And, I think a lot of the questions were answered initially when we had started talking about this. I didn't know yet at that point whether or not the Water Wastewater Commission was going to be the responsible party for the Water Sewer Enterprise Fund, because the selectmen were still implementing the CWMP, and where there's certain crossover and not crossover, how the enterprise was going to be handled. I think the consensus is that the sewer enterprise is under the care and control of the Water Wastewater Commission, as it's been submitted on the town meeting warrant from this board. When the budget was originally presented to the selectmen and finance committee, when before, pre-COVID, it was still technically the selectmen's waste sewer budget, as they were the acting sewer commission, because the vote hadn't taken place yet in June. So this is, that was the impetus for the meeting. That was trying to make sure that there was a understood transition, if there was any expectation from either the Water Commission or the Board of Selectmen as to how that was going to take place.
All right, I mean, honestly, so you have a meeting scheduled with the town administrator on September 15th.
Correct.
Basically, to follow up with the issues you just brought up.
Right.
I mean, honestly, I have no problem with you still meeting with them and going over what you're going to go over, but I think it would be nice to have another meeting as well with Joe involved, so we can ask some questions. But again, that's just going to be Joe bringing those questions to the Board of Selectmen, because as of right now, the Board of Selectmen are the acting wastewater commissioners.
Well, not anymore, and that's kind of what, once the vote took place, now that you guys have been sworn in as of last meeting, so the law, if you will, is the Board of Selectmen become the sewer commission in the absence of an elected sewer commission. So now that there is one, and the selectmen have expressed in the past that they have the desire to implement the CWMP due to, the appropriations, the tax, balancing the tax rate and all those things. So this was just really to make sure that both parties were moving forward in the right direction, if you will. But I can still talk with Joe at that meeting on the 15th. I can share with him some of my thoughts and invite him to the next Water Wastewater Commission meeting if there's things that we believe to be unresolved, or if the commission has additional questions for Joe. So
Is there?
Go ahead, Judy.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I'm just trying to think if I missed something in the last, last month or so. Is there something like in writing, like some kind of memo from the Board of Selectmen outlining X, Y, and Z? We are transitioning this to the water commissioners to be, to move into the Water and Wastewater Commission. Is there like something that in writing that the general public and
the charter, the language in the charter amendment, I believe, has text in there relative to the selectmen retaining the CWMP and the Water Wastewater Commission being responsible for the day-to-day operations of the collection system. There isn't clear definition on anything too much deeper than that.
So when you say that the Board of Selectmen still has control over the CWMP, you're talking about the planning, the pricing, right, the protocols. I guess I'm just.
Yeah, so it would be
I'm not understanding from a practical level, like what are we supposed to be doing then?
So the Water Wastewater Commission, we're going to have to set sewer rates, right? So that's going to be on this body's, list of things to do. Same with the rules and regulations, just like we have the Water Commission's rules and regulations, those same.
Well, why are we setting the rates if it's not a enterprise zone?
It is. Yeah, so, well, sorry, you're cutting in and out a little bit.
I guess I'm confused in the expectation setting rates when we, hang on a second, let me just turn off the, and I don't mean to be thick here, but I guess I'm just misunderstanding how we can be expected to come up with rates if we have no control over the budget. If I'm understanding correctly what you mean by the Board of Selectmen retaining.
So
do you guys follow my questioning?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue is the lack of communication between the two boards. As far
I feel
as,
like it's like the doctor saying to the nurse, yeah.
So I think where it gets
We didn't receive anything from the Board of Selectmen, correct?
in terms of, no. But, so, there is a clean split. So, the three water wastewater commissioners, you three are now the elected body and responsible party for the sewer enterprise fund. So the budget that we're about to go through later on in the meeting is the sewer operating budget, which is separate and different from monies that will be used to fund construction, planning, and CWMP activities. Those are still going to be funded out of the general fund, is my understanding.
Okay.
Under the care and control of the
This is
selectmen.
going to be based on the rates. Okay.
Right, so then the operations to fund our contract operators and the overhead for the actual, the electric bill for the pumps, those are going to be funded through sewer rates. And those.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Sorry. See, I am a little.
No, it's all good.
Yeah.
And it gets more money when the sewer enterprise is funded through free cash that's generated from the general fund. So it's not a simple, easy thing that, municipal finance isn't the most user-friendly thing to learn, so.
Well, isn't the wastewater also an enterprise fund? Okay, so the funding will come from that.
Well, yes, so right now, because there's no one connected to a sewer system, right, we still have to put forth a budget when we get to it, the $272,000, right, that we're going to need to fund the contract operations and all the other expenses that we may have. Now, because we don't have sewer customers, the Water Enterprise Fund does need money to pay those expenses, and that money is going to be transferred from three separate places. There's retained earnings in the sewer enterprise right now. So when the sewer enterprise was created a couple years ago, it was funded through free cash, and it was funded, I believe, initially at $70,000, and the intent was to increase the level of funding each year until the collection system came on. And at the time that the collection system came on, we would have built up the budget enough so we wouldn't shock the tax rate. So there's $70,000 remaining in the sewer enterprise fund. There is $100,000 proposed to be used from free cash for the sewer enterprise, and another $100,000 from the general fund. So the $200,000 from free cash and general fund are going to get transferred internally to the sewer enterprise fund, where it will then be expended for the operations.
Okay.
Until such time that we get ratepayers and we can start to back off of that general fund subsidy, if you will.
And that's in place for like up to 5 years if needed as we transition?
Well, it's going to be probably a lot longer than that, to be honest. The town of Chatham is still subsidizing, as I understand it, their sewer system. So it's, until there's the cost to operate the system.
The ROI.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Alan, anything else?
Yeah, okay, all right, but, like I said, the big thing, I would like to participate. I'd like to hear everything, firsthand and know where we're going.
Okay, Dick, so Dan, you're going to keep a meeting with Joe for the 15th, have that. And then set up a meeting for all of us to just either go over or move forward on what you have put together, just so we get the ball rolling and keep moving forward on that. I just need to see pass up that meeting and
I would like to see, you have that meeting on the 15th, fine, but I'd like to see from after that, beyond, that we all participate. We show learning curves for all of us. And just for one of us to go and meet, I don't think that works. You're with me.
I have no problem with that. It's just, yeah. All right, let's move on. Dan, let's move on. We're going to go into a water, wastewater rule over the department employees. The last meeting, we were talking about the town administrator's authority over the water department employees. I felt that we were in agreement to move forward and see exactly what the language was or when things changed. And we met with Joe, Dan and I met with Joe last week, and we went through the town charter, and I don't know if you do have a copy of the town charter in your packet? Each one of those?
No.
I believe it was in the previous packet, if I'm not mistaken, when the topic was first put on.
Yeah.
You should have, I can resend it quickly if you want to bring it to the top of I can bring it to the top of your inbox here.
It's the contract, the water department field employees.
It's in the packet with the contract, yes. So, just the short version of it is really, according to the language the way I understand it in the charter, it says that the town administrator oversees all department heads, to a certain degree, and full-time, part-time employees, appointing them and hiring and firing. But also in the language, it says unless there is an existing governing board or a board of an elected board. Thank you. So, reading it that way, my feeling is that we do have the authority and the governing over the water department employees. It's my position and my thought that we move forward and bring that to the attention of the selectmen and get their position on it and transition the employees under the commissioner's authority. And that goes for water and future wastewater employees. I just think it needs, the language needs to be clean cut, and understood, and moving forward, we're all on the same page. I'd like to know what Alan and Judith, their opinions on that. Alan? Is Judith still here?
To be honest, we used to be told.
I'm here. You guys hear me?
I can hear you, Judith. I just can't see you. Okay. Go ahead, Alan.
And it seems when Craig left and Chris came on, that's when the change took place. But we used to negotiate with the employees and the whole thing.
Right.
So, It all happened at town hall, didn't happen with the water commission.
Somewhere, somehow, during those transition time, things were changed, and I'm not going to get to why they were changed. I wasn't there, I wasn't involved, but I think it needs to go back to the way it was and have everyone under one umbrella, one governing board, and get the language cleaned up. So again, I think we should let the selectmen know our position as far as the charter language, and bring it back and have the language cleaned up and addressed. Judith?
I'm not opposed to it by any means.
Okay. Judith?
Oh, there I am. Okay. Yeah, I'm agreeing with you, what you're saying, Gary. And part of that came in broken.
But it kind of just makes sense that we're all, on the same page, so we'll send a letter out or get a hold of Joe again, and maybe get that on the agenda to meet with the selectmen and just get their feelings and their position on it, and make a change so it makes sense for everyone involved.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, then, FY21 wastewater budget.
All right, bear with me 1 second. I'm just going to share my screen so people at home can follow along. Bear with me 1 moment. All right, does everyone see that?
Yep.
All right, great.
Yep.
Yes.
Developing the wastewater budget, as Judith kind of was mentioning when we were talking about sewer rates, is how do we know what we're going to be collecting for revenue, right? Or how much flow we're going to be billing against. So there were a fair amount of assumptions that needed to be made, and I wanted to go through all of that and make sure that the Water Wastewater Commission understood kind of the methodology I used and how I got to these figures. So jumping right in. All right. Let me know when that changes. Okay, so the sewer enterprise budget is really going to be comprised of two different expenses. There's going to be IMA expenses, and there's going to be Harwich specific expenses. So the IMA, or intermunicipal agreement, is the binding document between Harwich and Chatham, and within that document are expense provisions. So there are fixed expenses and flow variable expenses. So the fixed O&M expenses for, the treatment plant are going to go towards things like plant maintenance. There's 20% of the DPW director's salary, SCADA contracts, and other various items. So that 23.08% number was derived from the quantity that Harwich purchased from Chatham. So the total design for that plant was 1.3 million gallons per day, and we've purchased 300,000. So that's where the 2308 came from. So that number is used for all of our fixed O&M expenses. The flow variable expenses are things that are going to be impacted by flows, things like chemicals, electric usage, natural gas, diesel. With wastewater treatment, we're going to have sludge removal and disposal and things of that nature. So those are the items that are tied to the IMA. And then for our Harwich-only expenses, we're going to have salaries and wages, which are built in, so to be consistent with enterprise fund guidance, and the Water Commission should be, familiar with this. We're only supposed to spend our water enterprise funds on water items, and the same is true with sewer enterprise. You're only supposed to spend that on sewer enterprise items. So where the salary and wages component comes in is where, myself and a few other employees in the department, by virtue of their position, are going to be required to interact with wastewater in some capacity. Myself, much more than others, but things like wastewater billing, we're not going to hire a new person to generate 400 wastewater bills. That's going to be generated within the existing framework of the department. So for staff who are going to interact with wastewater, we do need to carry some salary and wages to fund their positions for performing those wastewater functions. Beyond the salaries and wages, we have our O&M expenses, which are going to be funding the Harwich, pump stations that we're building for Harwich only, our electric utility, our contract operations, our gas, the postage for, sending out sewer bills and those things. So those are the unique components. So the next slide here is a clip of the budget. So a snapshot of the budget. And I don't want us to get too overwhelmed with all the numbers here, because I wanted to just show on this slide the column all the way to the left. You can see it either says IMA or HAR. And that is our IMA costs or our Harwich specific costs. So when we're looking at things and we're asking about, considering, can we cut the budget here, or can we, maybe raise or lower different line items, there are some items we can, and those would be the Harwich specific items, and the ones that we would not be able to cut the budget from, if you will, would be the intermunicipal agreement line items, because we're bonded through that agreement or obligated through that agreement to make those payments. So I just wanted to point that out in that left column as we're going through the budget, that so you can see where the funding is being directed, if you will. So, yep.
So, looking under the Harwich printing and postage and office services, it's saying we have a number here for $650.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that's the bill.
Yes, that is for printing the paper copies of the sewer bills. That covers the postage to get them to a customer.
So my next question is there going to be one bill with water and wastewater on that one bill? Are we sending out 8 bills a year?
That is done differently in different places. So that would be at the discretion of the department to do. For this stage of the game, there's, in the first 2 construction contracts, we're going to be dealing with about 400 sewer services total. We send out 10,000 bills to customers. So it's really formatting of the printer and the preference of the Water Commission, Wastewater Commission. One of the things that can cause headache, if you will, is that sewer rates are generally 2 to 3 times higher than water rates. Sewer rate, it just costs more to treat wastewater than it does to produce drinking water. So when you combine them, depending on, you could be seeing someone who has generally a $60 water bill get some pretty significant sticker shock if you combine them. So that's one of the kind of the negatives, is it doesn't really give people a good gauge on what it is. But again, this is the preference of the Water Commission, Wastewater Commission, and the most effective way to do it. But at 400 customers, general wastewater discussion topic that needs to be ironed out, right?
Right. I understand right now we've only got 400 customers. That kind of maybe doesn't make sense right now. But once we get up into the thousands or whatever that number's going to be, I know our postage just for the water department is what, 25,000?
Anyway, easy.
Yeah, and I just can't see doubling that. When, in all fairness, it can be done on one bill with one stamp and one envelope. Just kind of, in my opinion, I think we should be looking at that going forward.
Right, and I would want to verify. So right now, when you pay your water bill, it goes towards an account number, right? So we may send one bill, but they may need to send 2 checks back depending, I'd have to look at how, like internally, how that would be handled, so.
That makes sense. Honestly, I would like to encourage everyone to go paperless and do online billing. I mean, that'd be, for the environment. I just think that's the best way to go. But okay, so like I said, right now it's only 400 customers. I can just see that obviously that number is going to grow, and that cost is going to grow with it. And I'd like to try to save some dollars there if possible. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go on.
All right. So if no more questions, I'm going to jump to the next slide. So. Just one moment. Recalculate my thoughts here. Okay. All right. So we are looking to figure out how much water we are going to, or wastewater, we're going to send to the town of Chatham, because our flow variable costs are contingent upon our flow as a percentage of Chatham's flow, right? So if the sewer electric bill, and I'm just using round numbers for example purposes, the electric bill for the treatment plant is $100,000, and Harwich uses 50% of the flow, and Chatham uses 50% of the flow. While we split the 100,000, we pay 50 each, right? Where Chatham is well established on their wastewater path, and we're just getting started, we don't have a number to base our comparison off of yet, right? So we have to make a decent amount of assumptions as to how many people do we expect to connect to the collection system, and how much flow do we expect those people to generate, because that's going to then determine our percentage of the flow variable costs. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We have to budget, right? We have to budget. We have to figure out how much we're going to pay Chatham for the electric usage at their plant. And the only way to quantify that is to estimate or project the flow, so that we can figure out what our percentage of flow is compared to Chatham. So to do that, I looked at the water use data for, at the time, FY17 and FY18 for the entire Phase 2 area. So the entire Phase 2 area is about 1,049 parcels, and the average daily water use for those 2 years was 240 gallons per day. So then what we need to figure out is, okay, 240 gallons per day per parcel, well, how many parcels are going to be connected to the collection system? So looking down at the bottom half of the slide there, you'll see contract 1 and contract 2. So there's, out of both of those contracts, there's about 400 services total. Robert Hour's contract started before RJV's, right? So it's likely that they're going to finish sooner. They're on track to finish ahead of schedule, meaning that there will be more time left in the fiscal year for residents within Robert Hour's contract area to tie into the sewer system. So I estimated, of the 275 sewer connections for contract 1, potentially 15% of those parcels could connect. 15% of that, so that's 41 parcels. And that equates to 10,173 gallons per day, right? The same math for contract 2, there's 115 parcels. I anticipate they would be finishing closer to the end of the fiscal year. We may get a handful of customers from RJV's contract area. I had estimated 5% or 6 connections for a total of 1,400 gallons per day in the RJV area. So we're looking at about 11,500 gallons per day for the 47 connections, right? Where does that come into play? That comes into play, as I mentioned, when we're looking at Harwich flow as a percentage of Chatham's flow. So the spreadsheet you're looking at now shows historical data from Chatham's monthly flows, and then I had anticipated the earliest sewer connection could come online as early as February. That puts us 5 months out from now. Robert Hours I believe they're wrapped up installing the sewer main, and they have the 2 precast pump stations to install. I believe they're at United Precast being poured or just recently poured and going to be delivered up to the site. I know they cleared the site on 137 in Spencer's Trace, so they're going to be getting ready to put the pump stations in pretty soon. So if you're looking at February, 28 days, that 11,500 gallons per day, we're looking at, I did a linear growth for the 47 parcels that I expect we may see connect next fiscal year, if that makes sense. So obviously we're not going to have all 47 people call in on day 1, so our flow is going to grow over the fiscal year as well. So you can see for quarter 1 of 2021, which is the months of January, February, March, Harwich represents only 0.37% of the total quarterly flow for the Chatham treatment plant. The same is true for quarter 2, where Harwich represents 0.72% of the total flow through the plant. You'll also see on the column furthest to the right is a representation of when the flow occurs at the treatment plant. So you'll see, just as we experience here at the water department, there are significant upticks in flow during the summer months and a pretty steep drop-off in the winter months. Why that's important is because it's also going to have an impact on our flow variable expenses, right? Our electric bill is going to be higher when we're pumping more water. So we need to take that into consideration as well when we're looking at our flow and when we're apportioning the budget for the line item. So this is the last slide before we jump back to the budget. So this is what I put together for our contract operations estimate. So I reached out to Weston & Sampson. They're the firm that operates Chatham's wastewater treatment plant, their water system, and their wastewater collection system. Sat down with them and talked about, the day-to-day operations, and they provided us with a proposal for 5 pump stations at full build-out of the phase 2 area. So keep in mind, this is larger than what we'll have completed in contracts 1 and contracts 2. This labor estimate is inclusive also of the 3rd construction contract that would need to be completed to finish East Harwich. So what I did, because we're only talking 2 pump stations, 1 pump station, 1 contract, backed it out from the total annual cost of $375,000 to an annual cost per station of $75,000, and then a monthly cost per station of $6,250. So you'll see in the table below that February of 2021, you see $12,500. That is the monthly cost per station for the contract operations for the 2 pump stations at the under the Robert Hours construction contract. You see that double in April, which is when I had anticipated the earliest time at which RJV would finish. So that's when that jumps up to $25,000 per month to handle the 4 pump stations that are existing out in East Harwich. Okay, so back to the budget. So when we're looking at our IMA costs, and we'll start right at the top, right? So the regular wages, the IMA regular wages, the $28,788, that is the portion that the Chatham sewer budget carries of the DPW director's contract. So of the $28,000, Harwich is responsible for paying 23.08% of that, or you'll see when we start anticipate flow commencement, that $6,600 is broken out into $1,600 payments in quarter 1 of 21 and quarter 2. Moving down, you'll see Harwich expenses in personal services, which is superintendent and HWD support staff. So that's admin, meter reading, customer service, those items we talked about earlier. Jumping into the expense line items, we have testing. These numbers in the IM that are all categorized as IMA are figures that were provided to us from Chatham's FY21 wastewater budget request. So this is simply a copy and paste of their figures and then determining how much and when we're making payment on them. So for testing, you can see in this red column, quarter 3, you see makes up 48.92% of the testing budget, right? Because they're going to have to test more in the summer because we're pumping more. It's the same is true with the water sampling, right? Our bacteria sampling doubles in the summer months. So for budgeting purposes, we need to know when we're going to be and how much we're going to be spending. So that's where that comes into play, that 48.92%. So again, now we'll jump fast forward to January, February, March, when we think we're going to be putting someone online. Testing for Harwich in that category is only $7.76. Because again, we're at that 0.37%. So I can go through each one of these line by line, or if you guys want to ask any questions at this point, I'd be happy to answer any. All right, I can keep going.
I have a question, Dan.
Shoot.
I have a question. So, after it's all said and done, right, realistically, what are we looking at for a bottom line number as far as if this thing is up and running in February? Like, we have a line item in our budget of how much money?
For the FY21 budget that's in front of you today is developed with an anticipated start date of collecting wastewater in February and would require approximately $273,000 to carry us from February through June 30th of...
February 2020.
Yes. Or February 21.
2021, right. Okay. So when?
Until June 30th.
June 30th, right, okay.
You know, that's, again, and one of the important things to understand is this budget was developed with the planning to be able to fund the operation in February. February is a date that, you know, I had picked based on the construction schedule and when we anticipate the earliest date we could receive wastewater flow. The town of Harwich has some control over that. The town of Harwich, as a government, as an entity, is going to be issuing orders to connect. We have the ability to send that on February 1st or send that March 1st, April. It's at our discretion when we issue the order to connect. The only thing that the caution with that is that if Robert Hour, for example, does finish in February, and we don't issue the order to connect until July 1st, we've now had all of our equipment under warranty sitting for 5 months not operating, right? So we're really wasting and burning some of our warranty period on pumps and equipment that we're calling. That's really more specific to the pump stations than the other non-moving infrastructure, but that is certainly something to think about. So I guess where I was going with that is this budget was built around an anticipating start date of February, and it looks like we could hit it, or if the town wants to reduce this budget and potentially defer it until FY22, that would be at the discretion of the Board of Health, I believe is where the orders to connect are going to be issued from. And that could be for them as well as the selectmen. answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. Alan, you have any questions so far?
No, there's a lot of unknowns yet, such as that connection date. But no, I'm okay with this. It spells it out pretty well. The only thing is, like, I don't see anything, vehicle expense or anything like that in the budget.
Well, that would be borne under the contract operations.
Okay.
So we'd be soliciting an all-inclusive contract operation. So, you know, if it was Weston and Sampson, they would be providing the vehicles.
Okay.
I mean, Dan, also, you know, piggybacking off of Alan's comment about vehicles or anything like that, I mean, realistically, as far as hiring personnel for the wastewater department in the foreseeable future, I mean, we're not going to have anything to run it up except for, what, 2 or 3 pump stations?
It's yes and no. So there will be 4 pump stations, yes, to view and operate, but there's regular routine maintenance that you do on the collection system as well. There's relief valves, things on force mains that need to be operated. So yes and no. And that was one of the things, and I actually reached out to Val, an operator over in Chatham last week, to try to sit down with him and think about what exactly that's going to look like. I mean, if we have 1 customer and 4 pump stations, I mean, what does that look like on a day-to-day basis? Do we really need to carry $12,000 a month for that? And those are the things that we need to iron out.
Yep.
And that's that whole startup component.
Right.
It's not, I guess, you know, it's rare nowadays to have a sewer collection system such as this start up from scratch with nothing in the town before, you know. Usually they're expansions.
Right. I mean, besides, like you said earlier, besides you and the existing office staff of the water department, whoever we bring on board to maintain and, you know, watch the pumps that we have operating, you know, where will this future personnel call a base or home? Like, where are we going to put them?
Yeah, and that would need to be worked out. Depending on how the procurement goes, right? So that is something that we can write into the request for proposals, as far as, you know, if it was something as simple as Weston and Sampson getting it, you know, it would be likely a really easy problem to solve. They would likely dispatch their staff out of the Chatham facility, or add additional staff that could work out of the treatment plant, and then, you know, drive over the town line to handle, you know, whatever business needs to be dealt with in Harwich.
Right. All right. Judith, do you have any questions for Dan?
I think it makes sense to handle it as such, rather than start building staff at such a young age of the system, and see what we can do to you know, keep some control on it. I mean, like you say, maintain these pump stations, routine maintenance, and those types of things, troubleshooting, stoppage, any of that type of stuff. So if we could work it out like that, it would make more sense.
Yes, right.
Judith, any comments, questions?
No, I think I like how you laid this out, Dan. And so just to see if I understood correctly, so the 272,932 is kind of a best case scenario if things actually do turn on in February, correct?
Right, that is, yes, best case.
Okay, and in other words, it wouldn't be, unless something extraordinary happens, the largest budget that we would need in February is that number.
Right.
Okay. And when do you think you'd know whether or not it's turning on in February? Would it not be until like end of January? Is it weather?
Yeah, it's really,
snow as well?
it's really contingent.
Say that one more time and you went wonky, sorry.
Couldn't hear you, Dan.
It's contingent on what, Dan?
I think Dan's frozen.
Oh, okay.
Dan's laptop is dying. He's gonna jump on his cell phone.
Okay.
Gee, I would think they'd have all this system perfect by now, after all these months of virtual.
Technology is great.
As long as it works.
Exactly. You should be logging on back in a second.
Yeah, a couple of days ago, I was on a meeting for the Alliance, and I got dumped just at the time of closing the meeting.
Well, Dan finally got my iPad up and running right because I couldn't have audio, and then I didn't have video, but everything seems to be working now.
It's amazing what you think, how many virtual meetings are going on in the country right now. You know?
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's just mind-boggling. You know?
But the good thing about this, I think, long-term is people are driving so much less, you know?
Yeah.
I think so. And I guess yesterday the UN just came out with a very in-depth scientific report saying that the climate change stuff is 5 years from now, we're going to see like the increasing temperatures, and it's incredibly rapid now. So,
Wow, the air quality is sure better than it was.
yeah, amazing, huh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You can see those pollution maps that they've done.
Yeah.
The satellite maps, like incredible.
We could get California under control of its forest fires, would be
I know.
in good shape. I'm sure they would love that.
Yeah.
God, I just can't imagine going through that.
No.
No.
Years ago, decades ago, Israel used to seed their clouds. They called this, or I don't know what the technology was, but they increased the rain. I know they did it in Costa Rica as well.
Yeah, it's probably, the chemical they probably used was a pollutant, so you can't do it anymore.
Oh, you're probably right. Yeah, you're probably right.
All right. I think we're better off now. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
All right, I can hear you.
So we lost your voice just when you were about to answer the question on what the variable, was it weather dependent? I think was the last about the February kickoff date.
Oh, February kickoff date. It would be it's really how quickly they can wrap up the construction of the pump stations. They're prefab pump stations, so they have already been built. They're going to show up on a truck. All they have to do is pour a foundation, dig a hole, and drop it in place. And then there's going to be some odds and ends they have to tie, connect in the electrical and other things they need to wrap up. But that's, once that's done, there's going to have to be final inspection, the odds and ends that are typical with wrapping up large infrastructure projects, DEP inspection and things of that nature. But if they get this pump station in the next few months, we would be in position if the town chose to get going as early as February.
Okay.
And do those pump stations have any renewable energy? Solar battery, or is that too low? They need more juice.
They run very infrequently, and the size of the parcels are extremely small, especially because they've been taken traditionally through like eminent domain. So there is site footprint to put solar on. However, we will be able to add these pump stations to the solar array, an existing solar array that we already have. For example, the NextAmp one we've been working on that's going to handle the water department's surplus energy usage above and beyond the cap landfill project. That's why we could do the NextAmp one. These pump stations would be candidates to add on to this agreement that we just most recently entered into.
Thanks.
Sounds good.
We don't have historical consumption yet at this point to know what that would look like, but
All right, Dan, you got anything else as far as the budget goes?
nothing else on the budget.
All right. Any other questions or comments about the budget as it stands right now? Again, this is all, if everything goes according to plan, we're up and running by February. And so it's really kind of just waiting to see what happens.
Right.
And if the Board of Health signs off on it too, right, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, and that's exactly it. And it's this, and I think depending on, and I can talk about this with Joe, this week is depending on where the town's at with the budget and the financial position. If this is something, I know that there's been expressed interest in trying to reduce this further. If there's a commitment one way or another to, defer sending out the orders to connect, this could be reduced further.
Right. All right. Well, at least we have some room to work with that. All right, moving on. Anything else?
Nothing on the budget. I do have a couple of things that I wanted to touch base if we're there. Superintendents report here.
Alan, did you have a question?
No, I'm good.
Okay, all right. All right, go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, so I just wanted to let the board...
Dan, I'm sorry, hold on, before we go to superintendent's report. We have the laborer hiring update.
Oh, right, yes. We had 26 applicants. Let me see.
How many?
26 applicants. So today was, at noon, was the closing of receipt of applicants. Out of the 26, we had 6 that completed the application correctly. So we'll gonna comb through these and start setting up an opportunity to do some interviews here. So I'm optimistic given the number of applicants we have.
That's good. That's very good. Good to hear that. All right, on to Superintendent's Report.
I'm going to try to rifle through as quick as I can here. So this week I had the opportunity to speak with Horsley & Witten. They are an engineering firm who's been contracted by the EPA to aid water systems and wastewater systems with doing a cybersecurity assessment. And the output from this assessment is going to be to develop an action plan to address any vulnerabilities that may have been discovered during the assessment. So we had a kickoff meeting this week and another conference call set up next with them to go through our system and get that in place. So that's one update coming. Wanted to remind the board again, as I'm sure you were all familiar and aware, that next Saturday, the 26th, is the annual town meeting for the town. It begins at 10 a.m. and there is a rain date the following Sunday on the 27th at 1 p.m. I think it's 2 weeks, I might have misspoke. It's September 26th and 27th is the rain date. Update on the trailers and roller that was presented to the board a few weeks ago. We have received the roller. The small trailer has been purchased. We expect it to arrive, or has been ordered. Expect delivery sometime in October. The larger equipment trailer quotes are due back from vendors on Monday. So at the next meeting, I should have an update and or recommendation to award. Also, next week, the digging crew is going to be out on Great Western. They are going to be doing some work at the day, but primarily the work's going to be done at night, and this is the crossover projects that Dubas was working on that we have since taken over. One last thing, we do have our annual sanitary and security tank inspections for Mass DEP. They're done through a consultant, and it's a DEP requirement. Those are taking place next Wednesday. And that is all I got.
How many crossovers do we have left?
I'd have to get a hard number. I know there's 5 that they're trying to get done next week. This is probably the most difficult area that we're going to have to do night work because we can't shut the road down. But I know they're trying to get the 5 done. I know we've been chipping away at them. I'll follow up with Steve and I can let you know where they're at.
All right, great. Commissioners, anything, Alan?
No, I got a lot to think about, that's for sure. I've got nothing to throw in.
Judith?
No, I'm good. Yeah, Dan, thanks for those budgets. That's
So I guess our next order of business is our next meeting date. 2 weeks would be week between the 21st and the 25th. Any preference?
Could I recommend Thursday?
24th?
If that works.
okay.
That's fine with me. All right.
And assuming we'll all likely be seeing us, each other Saturday as well. We can post a meeting for town meeting as well.
Okay.
Okay. What time on that Thursday?
1 o'clock still?
Works for me.
Alan?
I'm on the fence. Yeah, let's go. Let's sure. 1 o'clock? 1 p.m.?
Yep.
Okay. What are you on the fence about, Alan?
All right.
Another meeting, but that's all right.
I was, I don't know what my if I can, real quick, my thought too was that just for that meeting where it's, 2 days right before town meeting would be a good chance to just do a quick refresher on the water department's budget, just our debt, what capital plan, where everything looks, just as a second look and refresher before, because we were planning on doing this 4 months ago.
I think it's a great idea. All right. And then the 26th is town meeting, right?
Yep.
That's fine. That's fine, Dan. That works. That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yep, 10 o'clock. Okay, do we need to call anyone to let them know we'll be there? Dan?
I think it just gets posted as a regular meeting.
I think I lost Dan. All right, I'm going to take a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Aye.
What's that?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, I'll take a vote by roll call. Alan? Aye. Judith?
Aye.
Alan is an aye. Judith's an aye. And it's an aye for myself. All right, thank you very much. We'll see you on the 24th.
Excellent. Stay
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
All right, all set.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
This conference is no longer being recorded.